Hi, my name's Caroline. I'm an integrative humanistic counsellor. Sorry, just moved the chair out of the way. I'm affiliated with the BACP, and today I'm coming to you with a video to talk about what is the difference between a toxic relationship and an abusive relationship. So I'm planning on doing a series of videos around to offer some support around if you feel as though you are in a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship and you would like some support, either to improve your toxic relationship or leave your abusive relationship. Neither is particularly easy to do, but there are definitely really good tools out there that I can offer you, and I'm here to give moral support and to try to understand maybe what's going on for you or your partner, and also to offer you a bit of hope. I have personally experienced toxic and abusive relationships, and I have successfully left abusive relationships. So yeah, just to say it can be done. So quite a heavy subject for today. So I've got my cup of cold coffee, and so I might be taking the odd slurp. I have some notes here, so if you see me glancing over there, there's quite a lot of stuff to cover, and I don't want to miss anything out. So yeah, kicking off. So how do we identify what is the difference between a toxic relationship and an abusive one? So when I say toxic, it's bandied around on the internet very, very frequently. Toxic relationships. So I'm going to say that we're probably actually looking more of an unhealthy relationship, and trying to identify whether it is healthy or unhealthy, and or whether it is, so healthy, abusive, in the middle, unhealthy, and there are all kinds of variations in between, and it will look different for different people. This end of the relationship scale is different for different relationships. There is a line. Crossing that line is where we move into abusive relationships. Somewhere around here is neglect. So, and there's all variations along the spectrum. Right at the other end, there is, extremely healthy relationships, sort of joyful relationships, ones that are, probably what we would all like to be part of. So really, when it comes to looking at whether your relationship is unhealthy or not, we can break it down into two main areas to look at. The first is to start with yourself, and trying to understand whether the situation has changed gradually over time, or whether there's been a sudden change in your relationship. And so the first thing we can do is we can start to look at ourselves and to really have a good deep dive into understanding whether something's changed for us. Has something changed in our life? Have I hit a bit of a crisis? Have I, have external events affected me? Have I had a job loss? Have I hit some kind of financial issue? Have I been made redundant? So looking at the financial side of things, looking at the domestic side of things, have I moved home? Are there a lot of pressures at home around sort of organising the home, or I don't know, difficulties around sort of, oh, you doing big home renovations. Then looking at sort of more emotional things, how you know, the difficulties within the family dynamic as a wider structure. Are my kids, you know, have the kids hit the terrible twos? Have the kids hit the teenage years? Have they just transitioned to school, into secondary school? Have they gone off to uni? Have they come back from uni? Um, all of these are significant changes to our lifestyle that may be impacting us. Other things that are important to consider, are there any significant health issues, a life limiting injury or disability? Have there been any deaths in our family or close friendship group? Have there been any friendship issues? Are there any kind of hormonal changes that you're experiencing? Menopause, you know, anything like that? You know, weight gain, weight loss, all of those sorts of things can really play a huge part in our internal stability. You know, what's my diet like? What's my exercise like? Was I exercising loads and then I've stopped? Just being really honest with yourself as a first stage in understanding whether actually the issue is lying within you as a person, rather than your significant other, or the relationship itself. So on a very practical note, I have two books here that I would highly recommend. You won't be able to read them because it's a mirror reversed camera. So this is the one that I swear by. It's called the Dialectical Behaviour Therapy Diary. The subtitle is Monitoring Your Emotional Regulation Day by Day. There is also this much thicker workbook which accompanies it. You don't need this unless you've started to fill out this and realise that actually you do need extra support around monitoring around regulating your emotions. So this book is fabulous. It was originally designed for people who experience emotional dysregulation, and it's a daily tracker. I'll just show you how it looks. And all you need to do is put ticks in boxes. So it really doesn't get much simpler. It tracks things like mindfulness, things like emotion regulation, things like, you know, your self-talk, things like your diet, your sleep, how you are relating to people around you, and how easy you find it to tolerate distress and stress in your life. It has a section at the beginning which explains what this all means, but it's very easy to read. I'm recommending it. I have no affiliation with these guys whatsoever. I've just found I don't currently use it. I don't need it anymore, but I did use it for a long time when I was in difficult relationships, in order to understand whether it was me, whether it was them, whether it was the relationship. And I recommend it for anyone, to be honest. It's really helpful, great structure, gives great advice on how to look at your own emotions, and to identify whether it's your emotions that need looking at, or whether there's stuff coming in externally that needs to be looked at more closely. So that's a really good way to start. If you are someone who journals, then that's another way of tracking what's going on for you in your life. So I'd highly recommend doing that. Really helpful to notice whether what's going on in your relationship is an old pattern. So has it been going on for years, or is it a new pattern? If we are looking at more of an abusive relationship, what may have happened, and I'll talk about this a bit later, but what may have happened is that in the early stages of the relationship, everything may have felt very lovely, very wonderful, very nurturing, very kind, very exciting, very interesting. And then usually within a year, sometimes more, sometimes after marriage or after some kind of commitment, then things change relatively abruptly. After having children as well, that can happen also. But that in itself isn't you can't take that in isolation as an indication of is this just, are we in an unhealthy pattern, or is this abusive? So everything I'm saying is context specific, and only you know what that context looks like and feels like. But I can just provide a few road signs along the way, hopefully to help you understand what's going on, because I work with a lot of clients who are either in or leaving or have left abusive relationships. And one of the biggest questions that comes up time and time again is it them or is it me? There's a brilliant book by Dr. Romani, who's a YouTube doctor. I should have brought it actually. It's called It's Not You. And it's I really recommend that book as well, as a way of helping you to identify what's going on. But that is for specifically for narcissistic abuse. There are lots of types of abuse, which we're going to cover towards the end of the video. So so starting to understand, is it me? And if the answer to that is probably, then, or at the very least, if you're looking at your emotional tracking and you think, I don't think there's anything too red flaggy going on with me, but I do actually think this is an abusive relationship, then we do still need to consider what's going on for you, that you've chosen an abusive relationship in the first place. I'm not victim shaming or blaming, but there will be something there for you that could do with looking at, that you haven't left an abusive relationship earlier. So the invitation there for you is to consider therapy, or at least talk to trusted friends, family members, safe people. Just the fact that you're watching this video probably suggests that there are question marks for you about your relationship, and whether it is unhealthy patterns or whether it is something worse, then we all need support. So there's plenty of really good charities out there as well. There's often you can access free counselling. I say that is not actually that easy, but if you're talking about if you're dealing, for example, with the death of a loved one, and that's what's maybe affecting how you are in the relationship, then there is free access to bereavement counselling. if there's financial issues, then there is, you know, that you're facing, then there's financial support out there. And there's a plethora, there's a wealth of advice on the internet. You know, maybe some of my videos you might find helpful as well. So if we are doing all that good tracking, and if we're, you know, sort of getting to a point of thinking, actually, do you know what, I think I'm pretty okay, you know, no one's perfect, but I'm not seeing any red flags, particularly in myself. Maybe you've done a lot of self-development, maybe you have been to therapy, or maybe you're doing a lot of work on understanding yourself, and you're at a stage of thinking, well, do you know what, there's always more work to do, but I think I'm fairly all right. Then maybe it's time to start looking at what's going on for your partner, and assuming that they are not abusive, then maybe now is the time to have a conversation with them, to talk to them about what's going on for them, and running through those same questions that you've asked yourself, trying to you know, whether you're having the conversation with them or not. Obviously I'd recommend you do, if they're not abusive, having the conversation with them around what's going on for them. Are they feeling under pressure at work? Are they you know, have they got health issues? Have they got you know, insecurities around, you know, themselves, or who knows what else is going on? You know, if they haven't shared anything with you, then it's really important to try to understand yeah, what's hidden. You know, and that dialectical behavioral therapy book could be helpful for them as well, if they, you know, if they sort of, I don't know, having a midlife crisis, or if they're unhappy in their work, if they're overworked, underpaid, got burnout, finding childcare is too difficult, missing the kids who are, you know, if they've gone off to uni or have, you know, left home. There's a whole range of reasons why your partner may not be, you know, showing up for your relationship. And all of that stuff is stuff that can be tackled, can be handled, can be molded, guided. If you know, there are some great couples therapists out there. Usually couples therapy is pretty short term. You can if you want to find a couples therapist, I would recommend you look on the BACP website. Couples therapy is not cheap, but assuming that you're both committed to wanting to improve your relationship, then it can work wonders. If you're in an abusive relationship, then couples therapy isn't necessarily the answer. I won't go into that now because this video is very long already. I've realized I've already been talking for 18 minutes. So yes, so but there are a lot of I think I've done a couple of videos. There's ways to help you hone your communication between each other, that can really help. Little tips and tricks. I will probably, as we go along, upload more when I find the time. So, but look on the internet. Esther Perel, amazing YouTuber, giving really good couples therapy advice. Just off the top of my head. Right, so moving into it. So if you have done all that due diligence and you really are starting to think, actually, do you know what? No, we're looking at something else altogether here. We can break down abuse into different categories. People divide it up in different ways. I'm going to do it in the way that makes sense to me. this doesn't come from any particular model. This is just how I see it in terms of my work. But hopefully it'll be helpful for you. So, okay, deep breath. This is pretty heavy stuff. So, physical abuse, mental or psychological abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, narcissistic abuse, spiritual abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect. So, what are they and how can you identify them? So, starting off with physical abuse, usually the easiest to spot. Physical violence is obviously overt, usually, may not necessarily leaving bruising or marks, but that's obviously a clear sign that you're being physically abused. As I said earlier, there are a lot of charities out there who will support you with that. There's a huge amount of shame. There's a huge amount of shame associated with all of these forms of abuse. I'm not going to talk about shame here, but that is definitely something for another day. And it is the shame often that will stop us from getting the support that we need. We may also have compartmentalized it into another part of our brain, shut it off, so that even though on one level we know it's happened, on another level we repress it and we pretend it hasn't happened because it may feel too overwhelming to cope with. So there can I also see physical abuse as if partners have found ways to restrict your physical movement or monitor your physical movement. So there can be much subtler ways of being abused than being punched. So things like being shamed for health issues, so that you don't feel able to go and see your GP or your dentist or the hospital, being shamed for maybe wanting to contact, if you've had children, maybe your health visitor or midwife. If there's sort of difficulties with your children around sleeping, there's lots of support, let's say, with sleep clinics, but some abusive partners will find ways to restrict your access to all of that support that you need and that your family needs. And by proxy, preventing your children or stepchildren accessing health support. It's a particularly insidious form of abuse that isn't often talked about. They can also find ways to restrict your access to food, maybe by using money, which crosses over into financial abuse, restricting access to things like going to the gym, having hobbies, seeing friends, seeing family. On a subtler level, they may find ways to coerce you to, for example, wear a smartwatch so that you are always instantly contactable, because you can't say, oh, I lost my phone or I didn't hear my phone. If you're wearing a smartwatch, you don't have that excuse. If they are insisting that you have Find My Phone switched on, for example, so they can track where you are. This also crosses over into mental and emotional abuse as well, but I see it more as like a restricting of your movements. If they're checking your messages your social media in order to locate you, and in order to restrict your access to other people and the outside world. That is a form of abuse and coercion and control. One last thing to mention around this is if they are showing physical aggression around you, or to your family or friends, including children or stepchildren, and also to animals. This is obviously a form of abuse, physical abuse against them, but it's also against you if those people are important to you because you are witnessing it. And if they are showing physical aggression towards your environment, so smashing things that are of value to you, throwing things that are important to you away, that, you know, throwing anything away of yours that they don't have consent to do. Yeah, so throwing away jewelry, smashing furniture, perfume, you know, and anything that you consider to be important, or simply having sort of loud physical meltdowns around, for example, DIY chores, or, you know, any jobs around the home. If, and of course we can all lose our temper when we're trying to put together the IKEA bookshelf and the instructions make no sense and you don't have the right screws or screwdriver, etc. As a one-off, or as a, oh, you know what she's like, she's terrible if she has to do the ironing. You know, I'm not talking about anything light like that. I'm talking about, this is, you know, this is where we're seeing patterns over time, and it feels aggressive to you. So, you know, making you know, sort of getting angry at you if you haven't done the hoovering in the way they'd like the hoovering done, and then the hoover gets launched across the room. And that's a way in which it can be easily explained away as, well, I wasn't angry with you, I was angry at the hoover. I'm not being physically violent towards you, it was the hoover that got it. If you want to see a celebrity example of that, if you look at the Johnny Depp Amber Heard footage, I'm not saying either one was an angel or a demon in that scenario. I think they both played their own part in different ways. But there was some footage where you could see Johnny Depp slamming cupboard doors. And if that was a one-off, that was a one-off. We can all lose our temper and slam cupboard doors. But if that's something that you are being repeatedly subjected to, and, you know, maybe later I'll use Amber Heard's abusive tactics so we can balance this out, because I'm not team either of them, quite honestly. But yes, that could be construed as physical abuse. Actually, we can name Amber Heard as physically abusive by some other footage that showed her throwing. No, it didn't actually show her throwing, but the court transcript showed that she threw probably threw a bottle of vodka in Johnny Depp's vicinity. The photos later then showed that the top of his finger had been severed as a result of that. Probably, possibly, maybe. I'm not laughing about that. I just obviously am covering myself. So yeah, so physical abuse. So she wasn't physically touching him, but her actions meant that he sustained a physical injury, quite a significant one. So I think we'll leave physical abuse there. So mental abuse slash psychological abuse. So arguably all of these examples of abuse fall under this category. But specific examples can be playing mind games, using manipulative tactics such as withholding communication on purpose. So, for example, if your partner knows that, you know, you like to know when he or she has got home safely, but they regularly won't text you to let you know that they're home safely, and you know, assuming that you've had this conversation with them saying, you know, I would really like to know you get home safely, and then they refuse to do that. So you're left not knowing, you know, are they safe? Aren't they safe? So you're left in this space of, you know, I can't sleep because I don't know, you know, if you're okay, for example. So silent treatment, stonewalling, using mental tactics and manipulation in order to undermine your confidence in yourself, confidence in the relationship. So an example of this might be sort of early doors. They might sort of give you a lot of compliments on how you look, how you smell, you know, how interesting you are, how, you know, wonderful you are, what a great mother, father you are, you know, how clever you are, I mean, there's a whole nother video on love bombing, but it's very hard to separate what's love bombing versus what's limerence, which everyone who is falling in love experiences. Limerence at the start of a relationship where everything is, you're in an elated state of sort of heightened desire and sort of desperately wanting to be with the other person and thinking that they're, you know, absolutely God's gift. You know, and where does the line between love bombing and sort of normal natural limerence, where is that line? Hard to tell. But if, for example, the relationship starts with extreme love bombing, so you know, extreme acts of sort of, I don't know, flowers, chocolate, champagne, let's go out, you're amazing, to a very high level, followed relatively quickly by sort of maybe more kind of demeaning, belittling comments. It may, as I said earlier, it may take a year or so, but often it will start relatively quickly, but you may not be alert to it. It can often switch either when you get married, or if you make some kind of financial commitment to each other, buying a house together, or if you become pregnant, or you know, anything that switches the power dynamic. If you're in a abusive relationship, that will signal the start of a change in behavior. They can also use mental abuse to undermine you, control you, and generally confuse you. the aim is to leave you very confused. Often this might take the form of the more narcissistic abuse. I'm not going to go into narcissistic abuse here, but narcissistic abuse is switching between the two. So on the one hand, giving you all the compliments, on the other hand, undermining you, controlling you, belittling you, and it's that switch between the two that is extremely confusing and can lead to trauma bonding, whereby you find it can feel virtually impossible to leave the relationship, and it's very, very, very easy to confuse trauma bonding with love, because you have such a strong desire to make the relationship work and to make them love you again. Again, a whole different subject for a whole different, oh, it's not a different subject, it's part of this, but it needs its own video, and well, several probably. So verbal abuse, so this can take the form of shouting, swearing, using words to upset you, so demeaning you, angry outbursts at how you have behaved, how you look, what you've done, what you think, or your lack of. Often they'll find your vulnerabilities and really double down. If you feel vulnerable about the way you look, your body size, your hair, your intellect, your ability, your values, they will find ways to hone in on those vulnerabilities. So they can use very discriminatory language or insults, racist, ageist, sexist, classist, all the ists. Or it can be more subtle, such as sort of questioning your ability, or this is not just verbal, it's also non-verbal. So the stonewalling, the ignoring, the giving the cold shoulder, it's also not just verbal, it's also using body language. So, you know, all the time they're speaking at a dinner party, you know, you would look at them, you might sort of support what they're saying, laugh along with their jokes, sort of give them moral support. But for example, same dinner party, if you then say something, you might get the eye rolls, or they may just not look at you. You know, you make a joke and they just sort of give you like a withering look. So if they, for example, if one of your vulnerabilities is I'm not very witty, they might subtly find ways to reinforce your sense of I'm not very witty or intelligent or interesting. They will find ways to reinforce that. And we're not just talking about a one-off. We're not just talking about, oh, he or she's having a bad day at the party we went to, and they're a bit sort of, you know, subtly not nice to be around, but that's just, you know, they're having a bad day. They had a bad day at work, or we had a bit of a row. I'm talking about patterns over time. There are some specifically very manipulative techniques that abusive people use around this. So gaslighting, and a technique called the dog whistle. Again, they need separate videos. So gaslighting is a way in which they will make you question your reality. So an example that I have is where they can If you, for example, or let's say you paid all the bills one month. This, I've made this example up. You've paid all the bills one month, and you know it's quite a lot of money, and you know you found it quite hard to you know organize that. They, I mean, this isn't a great example because you could just check your bank account, but hopefully you'll get the sense of what I'm trying to say. They could then say, you didn't pay the bills. What are you talking about? I paid them. Don't you remember? And, you know, like I say, in that example, you could just go and check the bank account. Unless, of course, they're being financially abusive and they are withholding bank statements from you. That's a whole different story. But so, for example, they could do something, they could say something, you know, you could say, oh, yes, I arranged for us to go on this trip, this X, Y, and Z date. And they might say, you didn't tell me that. I can't make it. I'm going on a golfing trip. And you know, you have a clear memory of telling them that. And again, context specific. If it happens as a one-off, it's a one-off. But if this is happening over time, then this is abusive tactics. And the aim of it, there's a film, I think it's 1940s film, whereby the protagonist, he gradually turns the gas lamps up in the house that he lives in with his wife. She keeps saying to him, the gas lights are turning up or turning, no, I might be turning down, I can't remember. They're either going up or down. And he says, no, dear, no, you must be going mad. The whole aim was for her to go mad so he could inherit all the money. So that's the root of the word gaslighting. So these are manipulative techniques in order for you to start to question your own sanity, for you to become confused, disorientated, which then gives them more power over you. So emotional abuse, again, all abuse falls under this category, but they can be specifically, some of the abuse can specifically hook into your emotional vulnerabilities. So subtle messages and body language that convince you that everything is your fault, and that if you were a different way or a different person or a different personality, then everything would be fine in the relationship and it's all your fault. So that links in with things like the gaslighting as well. It's about blame shifting. They are projecting stuff onto you that actually they should be taking responsibility for, but they probably never will. There are some specific examples here. So breadcrumbing, which is a way in which they withhold intimacy, and when I say intimacy, that can be sort of affection, eye contact, communication, intimacy, physical intimacy, so hugging, kissing, sex, just withholding the things they know that you really like or want or need, so emotional connection. And then the breadcrumbing comes where they just allow a little bit of it, just enough to get you, just enough so you won't leave. And so you end up kind of surviving on bread and water in your relationship, as opposed to, you know, eating delicious, nutritious meals. So I'll take an example from real life. So someone that I know, their ex-partner, after the first early part of their relationship, their ex-partner stopped kissing them on the lips because they said that it was too emotionally intimate, and they just didn't really like it. They just found it a bit odd. And so the partner had to come to terms with the idea, because she thought that she was going to be with this person for the rest of their lives. So she had to come to terms with the idea that for the rest of her life she wasn't ever going to be kissed on the lips. Then but very occasionally he would give her kisses on the lips, and it was just enough for her to sort of sustain her enough to continue in the relationship, because lip kissing was something that was really, really important to her. This person then had an affair that she found out about, and she was getting ready to leave him. And the way he rekindled their relationship was for a period of time doing a lot of lip kissing. So she felt as though, you know, he was now ready to be emotionally intimate with her again. And then as soon as she was safely back in the fold, gradually the lip kissing faded away again. So that's a very sort of subtle way that abusive people can control relationships. There's a thing called a dog whistle, which I only recently found out that there was a word for this behaviour. So this behaviour is, this occurs in a public setting. So usually around close family and friends. So let's take the example of being at a party together. You're at a party with your partner, and your partner, you know, you know each other pretty well, let's say. So you've been together for a while. Your partner knows that things that might upset you if you're in a public setting. So let's say something like your partner knows that if he if he makes a joke about your big nose, that's not very nice anyway. But if he knows that that is, you know, if that's part of a relationship where you have that level of jokiness and you both enjoy joking around with each other, then that's okay. But if he knows that if he comments on your big nose, if he or she, of course, knows, whatever gender, if they know that that is going to upset you, then that is called a dog whistle, because it's very hard then for you in a public setting to contain your emotions or to sort of process that behaviour. And often it's designed to ensure that you then have an emotional reaction which makes you look like the person who's a little bit unhinged or a little bit unstable. It's really dark behaviour, very, very insidious and very confusing. The comment about the big nose is probably a bit more overt, because, you know, you might then have other friends sort of saying, well, that wasn't really very nice, he commented on your big nose. So there can be much subtler versions of that. I don't know, let's say if your partner knows that you know, you feel insecure in social settings, let's say, and you've said to them, oh, would you mind just sort of checking in on me, a couple of times at the party, just, I'd really appreciate that, because, this is a group of friends, this group of people that I don't really know, and I feel super uncomfortable. And your partner has said, yeah, no, that's fine, of course I will, don't worry about it, but then ignores you the whole night, knowing that that is going to really upset you. So again, context specific. Is it, was he or she having a bad day? Did they just did they just drink a bit too much, get carried away in their own world? And, that's understandable. Or did they know that that would upset you? Is this a repeating pattern? Have you had the conversation that it upsets you, and please could they change or just meet you halfway? Hard to identify, but these are some of the subtler forms of abuse / neglect that we don't always easily identify. Not as easy to identify as if your partner, for example, is being physically abusive. So financial abuse, so withholding of money, making sure that you are not in a financial position whereby you could leave them. A subtler version of this is that if, for example, they have more of an income than you, and rather than finding ways to minimize the power differential, because money is power. So if there is a big financial differential, that might cause problems within the relationship. If they don't find ways to work with you to make sure that's not a problem within your relationship, and then that can be a subtle form of abuse. So, and for example, if they are using a lot of their money to go off on holidays with their friends, let's say they buy designer clothes, they can afford designer clothes all the time, they can afford nice cars, top of the range electronics, whatever, they just buy whatever they like for themselves. Whereas let's say you are shopping in charity shops, you get the hand-me-down phone, the hand-me-down car, you're always the one getting like their cast offs, for example. You don't get the same stake in decision making because of the perceived imbalance, or because of may also be because your confidence has been eroded over time, that you may not feel empowered enough to have the same say in decision making. And there's a lot more to say about financial abuse, but we don't really have the time. We're coming up to an hour. Spiritual abuse. So if you are denied your right to your own spiritual values or practices, or if they coerce or force you into adopting their spiritual values or practices. So this can, if we're looking at extreme versions of this can be, they coerce you into joining a cult or any kind of organized religion that you don't want to be involved with. although often joining cults may look like something that they don't usually present as cults. They usually present as, oh, we're here to help you and we're just a lovely community. And then it turns out that they're abusive. It can take the subtler forms of just kind of undermining your enjoyment of your spiritual practice, or criticizing your enjoyment. So yeah, very sort of the more subtle version of this is, you know, let's say you love crystals, or you love oracle cards, or you enjoy meditating or yoga, or you know, or you enjoy going to church. You have your spiritual identity. They find ways to undermine that identity, or those values that are important to you, if you do have spiritual values. And so over time, you can find that side of your personality very much eroded. And again, it's designed to cause confusion. So you might, if you were a spiritual person, you might then, let's say they're strongly atheist, you might then find yourself over time sort of edging more towards their perspective and leaving your old values behind. And that's, yeah, obviously we all have free will around where we sit on that spectrum, but ultimately, you know, we want to be in a relationship with someone who respects our rights to have spiritual values, if that's what you want, and doesn't criticize or undermine those rights. And finally, sexual abuse. So this can take the form of overt physical acts, rape, sexual violence, sexual coercion, including the use of pharmaceuticals in order to coerce you into doing things that you would not usually consent to. Also falling under, if you are underage, you cannot consent if you are underage. The subtler version of that, but still highly, highly abusive, is sort of the more covert insinuation that there's something wrong with you if you don't want to engage in activities that they would like you to engage in. If if they want you to, for example, watch pornography, but maybe you don't want to, they may find ways in which to shame you for that. For example, they may find ways to shame your sexual ability, shame your level of sexual desire. They may belittle you. They may make you feel as though you're not very attractive. So they may withhold sexual intimacy in order to reduce your confidence and your power in yourself. They may body shame you, which may affect you on a sexual level. And then the involvement of third parties, so either triangulating you with someone else in terms of, on one level, sort of flirting with another person at a party in front of you, or not even necessarily in front of you, but you find out about it, all the way through to, contacting other people. Some relationships view it that if their partner views pornography, that is a line in the sand for them. So, relationships differ around what your boundaries are. But if your boundaries are consistently being breached by your partner, then that's a strong, clear sign of abuse. So yeah, triangulation can take lots of different forms. Um, if they have an OnlyFans account, does that constitute sexual abuse? Some people view it that it does, others view it that it's not. We're all different, probably on that spectrum. But, you know, the idea that they, you know, if they have a friend who is very desirable and there is maybe subtle covert indications to you that they might find them attractive, that might feel like a threat to you or to your relationship. They may have a co-worker who's very attractive that you notice there's lots of messages, you know, does that mean that they're having an affair? Not necessarily, but does it, but have they breached a boundary? In which case, do you feel violated within the relationship? Obviously, all the way up to having a full-blown, them having a full-blown sexual affair or infidelity. Not everyone sees that as a form of sexual abuse. I personally do, unless it's consensual, in terms of unless you are overtly aware, it's been discussed. There's lots of relationships these days where partners are ethically non-monogamous. That's very different. Consent is all, you know, everyone's consented to there being multiple partners within the relationship. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you are in a monogamous relationship, if you've agreed to remain exclusive and then they are sleeping with one person or several other people, and you discover that, or whether you discover it or you don't discover it, that is sexual abuse because you have not been made aware that they're sleeping with someone else, and they are then most likely also sleeping with you. That is abusive on lots of different levels. So really heavy topics. All of these forms of abuse may then also be balanced. Not balanced, that's not the right word. Your partner may then try to offset some of this by showing a level of awareness of their behaviour, and may then, you know, you may then be getting apologies, you may be getting recognition, and you may be hearing that they're really sorry, begging for forgiveness, wanting to make it up to you, maybe showing you acts of kindness, very overt, sort of romantic, to try and win you back over, which, you know, again, everyone makes mistakes, but if this is a pattern over time, then we probably need to look at that and realise that this wasn't a one-off or even a, you know, making a couple of mistakes. This is happening over time, and when we have abuse offset with extreme patterns of apologising and trying to make up for it and sort of trying to win you back over, then that pattern, excuse me, can lead to a process called trauma bonding, whereby you spend your life trying to forgive the abuse because you don't want to be with the abusive partner, but you do want the lovely partner who's very apologetic and understanding and thinks you're wonderful. So even though probably the majority of your relationship is in this camp, you're desperate to get back to this camp, and so you end up oscillating between the two. And again, that's extremely confusing, can result in sort of severe mental health issues for you, a lot of distress and a lot of confusion around, do you love this person? And it can feel very much like love, but it's not love. It's trauma bonding, and it's incredibly hard to release yourself from, but it is most definitely possible. And back to my original message of there is hope. 100% you can leave your partner if your partner is abusive. We didn't look at neglect at all. There's probably not time now to touch on neglect, but neglect is around the idea that your partner isn't overtly abusing you, but is not interested, subtly ignoring your needs as a person. And that can be all across the spectrum of needs and wants from within a relationship. That's not okay. None of this is okay. What can you do about it? So I'm going to do a series of videos offering practical advice, offering emotional and mental support, trying to understand what's going on for you so that you can break these cycles, break these patterns, find the strength you need if you are in an abusive relationship in order to leave that abusive relationship. Huge warning. Sadly, and it's awful that I have to say this, but the statistics of particularly women, but the statistics of people being killed by their partner are horrific, especially if your partner suspects that you're planning to leave them. So 100% please look after yourself if you are planning to leave an abusive relationship. Do everything you can to safeguard yourself and your children. Make sure you have a safe place to go to. Make sure you have plan it well in advance. Ideally have a bag packed, and it sounds very dramatic, but it's very important to have a burner phone at a safe person's house, and choose a time when you are 100% sure that they are not going to be around, in order to leave the relationship. We can talk more about that in other videos. I just, really please do, if you believe you are being abused. Obviously the law has changed now, so the police do acknowledge, the law acknowledges emotional and mental abuse. So please do reach out to them, even if it is just to register what has happened. If you're being physically abused, if you can take photos and then send them to trusted people, then clear them off any devices. Be very careful about covering your tracks, clearing your search history if you're looking for safe places to go, if you're looking for safe organisations to contact. Always clear your browser history, and make sure that you have safe people there supporting you. Remember people like the Samaritans also for support. And hopefully you have got a therapist. Hopefully you have got a good circle of friends you can trust who can support you through this if that's what you're deciding to do. I'm not recommending you do that. This is not about me offering advice. This is just me talking to you about, you know, noticing signs. Back to my original advice, the thing we can do is we can look at our own responsibilities. We can track our own emotional regulation, whether we're in an abusive relationship or it's just we're going through a tough patch. Be very careful if you leave books like this lying around. I know people in relationships who have left material like this lying around that has been discovered by their partners, abusive partners, and it has not been fun times. And I'm not minimizing, it's not right for me to go into any specifics. So if you're filling these out and you suspect you're in an abusive relationship, your partner, if you are in an abusive relationship, they will use whatever material they can against you to belittle you, to demean you. So possibly use, you know, unless you feel confident that your stuff is in a safe place, maybe use some form of code that only you understand. Yeah, sorry to sort of be a bit dramatic about that, but I think it's really important for those of you that are in very extreme circumstances, and my heart goes out to you if you are experiencing that. I have lived experience of that, so I'm with you. And yeah, just please do reach out for support from family and friends, and organisations that are there set up to support you. Right, I have gone on and on and on for quite a long time. I hope this has been informative, helpful, useful. I don't think it's been entertaining, this one, in any way, shape or form. Like I said, I will be uploading other videos to offer practical advice and guidance, and to look at ways in which I can support you, whatever stage you're at in your relationship. So thanks for watching and take good care. Bye.